What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir Technologies stock, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Thursday, March 14th. Alright guys, Palantir stock here today is up 30 cents a share. That's plus 1.21%. Right now it's up about another 8 cents in the after hours. As always, take that after hours with a grain of salt. Volume is incredibly low, but again, if I'm a bull, I'd prefer that it's up 8 cents rather than down 8 cents. Sure. You know, I'll take it. It is, of course, the real price. Let's get started here today on Palantir by starting with our daily ritual, the volume profile analysis. Try to pull some bias out of today's move, apart from simply the move in stock price on the 5-minute chart. Listen, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. My goal here is still to hit 5,000 by market open this coming Monday. I think we can do that with your guys' help. So thanks for jumping aboard, and I'll continue to do my best to provide some free value to you every single day. So, as I stated previously, we're looking to pull bias out of the market that we can't see in the regular movement of the stock price. So how do we do that? Well, we can use volume. It's a very interesting tool to dig into. So I need to see changes in volume that correlate with obvious moves in stock price, which we'll circle here in a second. There's varying amounts of them depending on the day. But number one, they have to be outside of the context of what is typically expected at that time of day on an average day. Okay, so the obvious moves that I want to see is kind of this back and forth, or that I want to look at more so, and then this upside move compared to the fade that followed. Those are really the only two that I'm very much so intrigued by on Palantir today. So let's start from left to right. Right off the open, we got a pretty average opening bar, of course, blown away by these two, which we'll get to in a second. And we saw, what I thought is interesting here, we saw kind of quickly descending volume on the pump. The fade also faded in volume very quickly. We saw a little bit more consistent volume, which you guys know I'm after consistent volume. 3 or 4 bars of consistently elevated out of context volume gives me a little bit of a sense of a bias there. However, on the back and forth, we saw pretty, relevant or more so comparable volume on the fade, even though we did see an interesting little pop on the green side. So that first, up, down, and then up is kind of a wash in my head. There's nothing we can really pull out of there without, with still remaining unbiased. Now, this intraday move is the biggest, most obvious move of the day. What we got here is some very obvious increasing buying volume on the green bars. Sure, we had a small red bar mixed in, but again, it was one of the smallest bars in this move. So I'll take that. That's fine with me. Aside from that, we had a lot of consecutive green bars. And then on the fade, if you look at the fade that followed this, guys, this was actually very interesting. We got a very much so decreasing volume incredibly quickly on the fade that followed that pump intraday. That to me shows a very clear bullish bias in that at that time. At that time of day, we had, okay, a pretty big bullish sample size that came in, or the sample size in general, that came in and said, yes, the majority of us agree Palantir belongs higher right now. So let's move on now from that. Always very interesting to look at the volume profile and take a look at some self-fulfilling prophecy psychological levels that I'm paying close attention to here tomorrow, Thursday. Now today, Palantir had a pretty good day on the 30-minute chart. We were able to reclaim what we had not been able to claim in a little while here. That 50-period moving average, a very common moving average, heavily watched on a heavily watched time frame here. Off the open, the 50-period continued downside, not unexpected as it was already pretty aggressively moving downside. Off the open, we tested it, rejected a few times. Popped through. Look at this. This is textbook. Popped through on high volume. A lower volume retest and a hold into the close. Now, the only thing that could have made this better is if we retested here. Well, let me use the line instead. If we retested here, more clean. As you can see, the volume is decreasing, and then we saw an increasing volume bounce away. That is the only thing that could have made this better here today on Palantir, but that claim of the 50 period on the 30-minute chart, while it's a short-term accomplishment, because it's a fast-moving chart, the moving averages move quickly, That's a great thing to see. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, if you're a bull, of course, it's a great thing to see. Not perfectly ideal if you're a bear. But looking ahead here to tomorrow, if I'm a bull looking at this chart, I want to see two things. I want to see this 50 period starting to flatten out and ideally curl back to the upside, kind of break this downtrend the 50 period has been in for a psychological effect. Okay, and any retest in the stock of the 50 period, I want to see a clean hold and then a high volume, like we saw here on the break. Clean hold on volume. I don't really mind what volume, as long as the volume on the bounce is high. Okay, that gives us a big sample size, a big opinion that, you know, this thing belongs above the 50 period, at least in the short term. Bears, really simple for you guys here. The downside crack back below that 50 period, similar to this on the high volume, downside break on high volume, and then ideally, right, a lower volume retest and then a high volume rejection. Okay, bulls, another great scenario here tomorrow would be to reclaim that 200 period in a similar way as we did the 50 today. And bears, any retest of that 200 period, you're going to want to see a similar test and then a high volume rejection off of that. Okay, just small steps here, small steps to the moon, no matter what side you're on. And the 30-minute is the quickest moving chart of all of them. So let's move on here now to the 4-hour and see, is it contextual right now? Because it sometimes isn't so contextual, and we move on from this kind of quickly, but it's very much so in play here right now. You can see here that we struggled to reclaim the 50 period on the 4-hour today. That was clearly a psychological barrier today. So bulls tomorrow, really simple here. I like that the 50 period's above that psychological level of 25 bucks a share, but I want to see that reclaim, again, on as much volume as possible, ideally retest and then pull away, claiming that as support. Again, doing so on big volume is ideal. Bears, you would love to see a repeat of today. You know, if not adding in a hard rejection, getting back down below 25 bucks a share, which we'll get to here on the daily chart, which is, you know, the daily is the most important chart. This is by far the most contextual, the most psychological, the most heavily watched. Okay, the stock closed at 25 bucks today on the dot. It's up a little bit after hours. Again, take after hours with a grain of salt, but what's the story here tomorrow? Because the obvious story on the daily is the story that I want to pay the most attention to. It's the cleanest and it has the most eyeballs. I'm a believer that TA is nothing more, nothing less than a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's the way I like it. If it wasn't that way, I'd be out of a job. 3 numbers I'm watching tomorrow. Bulls, hold 25 bucks a share. That's really important, you know, in the short term. Of course, longer term fundamentals always take over. But in the short term, if we're paying attention here, whether you're a trader or just an interested longer term investor who wants to kind of keep your finger on the pulse, which I do think everyone should do if you can handle it emotionally, hold 25 bucks. Okay, 25 is a huge psychological level. That is an important hold as a support level. Use 25. Then in the near future, we can look to use 25 as kind of a trampoline to make a high volume pull away up toward 26. Each round number is the next psychological level on Palantir at the current price point that it's at. Bears, really simple, exact opposite. Break downside, reject off 25, hold 25 as a psychological and then technical resistance. Okay, but I'm not talking for 6 minutes. I'm talking in the big picture. A lot of volume, a lot of sample size of opinion coming in, spending a lot of time below 25, closing below 25, and using that as a resistance level to push back down toward 24. Bears, that's your best case scenario here tomorrow. Now, my favorite part of the video, let's take a look at what the bias was out of the options traders here today. No different than is typical here on Palantir. We had 340,000 total contracts traded. That's a good sample size. We can get some good data out of that. 247,000 of those were calls, and about 93,000 of those were puts. Heavy call side bias. And then, as has been typical on Palantir for weeks, if not months, this is very common lately on Palantir. I don't expect this to last forever, but what we do have here, every single delta range, all of them, are leaning call heavy, including the one that I'm most intrigued by, the 0 to 20, which is the short-term speculators. 69,000 calls, 35,000 puts. So we have a short-term call side bias. That's the far out of the money contracts, right? And we also have an overall heavy call side bias. Listen, you got value out of this video, please subscribe to the channel, help me reach my goal, 5,000 by Monday market open. I really think we can hit it. Thanks a lot. Leave a like on the video on your way out if you wouldn't mind. Help push this to more people who are interested in the stock. and I'll see you in the next one.